Straight ahead, done deal. Why Texas lawmakers say they're changing the way they spend money for public schools amid a new agreement containing a record funding increase. One step closer, how Texas could end up a winner at the border after congressional Republicans pass what's called, quote, their big beautiful bill. Revenge porn takedown, what a North Texas teenager says about the new law signed by President Trump that she inspired to crack down on deepfake videos. Good morning, I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics starts now. Hello and welcome to Eye on Politics. Hope you're having a good Sunday so far. We begin with a new deal struck by Texas leaders that will provide billions of more dollars for public schools. It comes as state lawmakers are headed toward the political finish line. There are just 8 more days left in their regular legislative session at the Capitol in Austin, ending June 2nd. A public school funding deal is one step closer to becoming law. The Texas Senate has approved House Bill 2, which will spend an additional $8.5 billion for public schools during the next 2 years. The House is also expected to pass it. That's a $500 million increase from the previous agreement struck the week before. As part of the new spending, $4.2 billion of that will go toward permanent pay raises for teachers with 3+ years experience and other non-administrative staff. There's also more money for special education, full-day pre-K, and school safety. I spoke with Republican State Senator Brandon Creighton of Conroe, who's the chairman of the Senate's Education Committee. And Creighton answered criticism by Democrats who said the state is still underfunding education, and he explained why their version is better for students and teachers.
There's been a lot of attention on the basic allotment and how much money is included in the basic allotment. The basic allotment is called the basic allotment because it's first. It's the initial start of the funding for our public schools. There are many, many, many other funding provisions tied to how we deploy dollars from the state to our public schools. And so we're focused on different architecture this time. We're focused on a budget that funds key priorities that drives these dollars directly to teachers and directly to the classroom that will affect student outcomes, not to upper level administration, not to priorities that don't lead directly to an impact on student outcomes. Put another way, $55 added to the basic allotment represents not even 7% of the total new dollars flowing to public education, to our schools in this legislation. So all the focus on the basic allotment and adding $55 has been focus that has left 93% of the new dollars out of the conversation.
And so I wanted to ask you about that because I spoke with Democratic State Representative James Tallarico earlier, and he said this is still inadequate. He's like, don't be fooled by the $8.5 billion number. It sounds big, but he said Texas is big. He said the allotment, the basic allotment, should be increased by about $1,300 or $1,400. So what do you say to that?
You know, I think it's easy for Representative Tallarico to say that we should add $1,300 or $1,400, and it's easy for him to not include that that's north of a $20 billion number. That's just impossible. Our entire surplus, which we may never have again, is barely that number.
Talk to me about the teacher pay raises, because that's about half of this, about $4.2 billion, and that also includes other non-administrative staff.
That's correct. We have nearly $4.5 billion of raises in the legislation that will, by and large, lift our Texas teachers up with the largest raise in history for our state, for our teachers. I think the important thing also for the media to focus on, Jack, is that this raise is permanent. The basic allotment increase is not a raise that continues to grow over time. This raise in our legislation for HB2 includes provisions for a new teacher pay allotment that the Senate fought very hard for. It wasn't in HB2 when it came back from the House. And that permanent teacher pay allotment grows over time, where in the past, when we've given a teacher pay raise, it's been a 2-year bonus or stipend.
Democratic State Representative James Tallarico of Austin is among the most vocal critics of the state's funding bill, and he's not impressed with this latest deal.
This bill is woefully inadequate to the crisis that we face in this state in public education.
Let me ask you, because how can you say that at the same time? I mean, there's $8.5 billion in new money being injected into public schools. So can you explain that?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because people see a big number and they think it sounds pretty good, and it is better than nothing. But Texas is a big state, and so the numbers are going to sound big. This doesn't even catch our schools up to 2019 funding levels, and that should be unacceptable for every Texan, regardless of their political party. We need at least a $1,300 increase to the basic allotment just to catch our schools up to 2019 funding levels, to catch us up from the inflation we've experienced in this state over the last 6 years. Fort Worth just announced they're going to close 19 elementary schools because of a lack of state funding. So we're seeing this everywhere, including here in Central Texas, in South Texas, in rural Texas. It's everywhere.
What I've read and what we see as far as the funding, that this is basically the state legislature directing school districts to spend money on certain things. So teacher pay raises, $4.2 billion will go towards teacher pay raises and other staff.
I will say, I'm glad that some teachers are going to get a pay raise under this bill, but it does not give every teacher a pay raise. We see the most turnover with teachers who are in the classroom for 5 years or less. And most of the generous pay raises are going to go to teachers who have been in the classroom for 5 years or more. And that's great for those teachers. They desperately need a pay raise. But we really should be using this record budget surplus to give every Texas teacher a substantial pay raise. In a lot of ways, this bill is giving our schools and our teachers crumbs.
And so, because I know Republicans say they want to incentivize those teachers who are in it for the long haul. And I believe under this latest proposal, it's teachers who have 3 years into the system plus start getting the raises. So if you're a first-year teacher or a second-year teacher, unless the districts act on their own, they're not going to get any state money. Is that right?
Well, and the teachers who are 3 and 4 years are not getting as much of a pay raise as teachers who have been here for longer. And again, I think that the experienced teachers and veteran teachers desperately need a pay raise, and we need to do that. What I'm saying is we have a $24 billion budget surplus in this state. And so we should be using that money to give pay raises to all teachers, especially teachers who are under 5 years, because that's where we're seeing the most turnover.
House Bill 2 has received widespread bipartisan support. Some other bills are already on their way to the governor. They include Senate Bill 31, which is aimed at clarifying medical exceptions to the state's near-abortion ban. It received widespread bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate. A handful of conservatives voted against the measure in the House and said they worry it will lead to more abortions. Supporters of the bill rejected that.
We are in no way promoting abortion on this. What we are trying to do is save the life or the bodily functions, major bodily functions of a mother. And I get a little emotional about this, but I've got friends who watch their wives nearly bleed out.
This bill creates loopholes to recharge the pro-choice industry in Texas, and I will be voting no.
Another bill that will be signed into law grants businesses property tax relief. House Bill 9 will raise the property tax exemption for businesses from $2,500 to $125,000. Coming up a little later, a North Texas teenager who inspired a new federal law tells us what it was like to be there at the White House for the bill signing ceremony. But next, how Texas could end up a winner at the border when Eye on Politics comes right back. Welcome back to Eye on Politics on this Memorial Day weekend. In Washington, congressional Republicans, including all from Texas, passed what President Trump has called the, quote, big beautiful bill. It extends and makes permanent tax cuts from the president's first term. It also includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime pay, and an additional $4,000 to the standard deduction for seniors. But those are temporary, not permanent. The measure also cuts Medicaid spending and imposes work requirements. The legislation also contains $12 billion to reimburse states like Texas for their efforts to secure the border during the Biden administration, which saw record numbers of people who entered the U.S. illegally. Governor Abbott requested more than $11 billion in reimbursements back in January. We spoke with Republican Congressman Keith Self of McKinney, who voted for the measure but also criticized it.
There are many good things in this bill, Jack. Don't get me wrong. There are some flaws in it, but there are many good things, starting with those tax cuts that you just talked about.
Did you meet with President Trump at all to try to get what you wanted out of this bill?
Yeah, a small group of us went to the White House yesterday afternoon. We sat down with President Trump, his chief of staff, Stephen Miller, his legislative affairs folks, and the director of the OMB, Russ Vought. And my part in the conversation was to try to get enough in the bill so that Medicaid expansion would not even be attractive to the state of Texas.
As far as the spending cuts on Medicaid, did the program still grow? In other words, I understand there were cuts, and Democrats say there are, I believe, going to be more than 8 million people booted from this program.
You're looking at a 25% growth in Medicaid over 10 years. Now, those people that you talk about being booted off of Medicaid, Medicaid was never intended to service them. These are the working-aged adults who are not working, who are playing their video games, cashing their government checks. These are illegal immigrants who should not be getting Medicaid in the first place. So we need to be very careful when we talk about who's getting booted off of Medicaid. We want to preserve Medicaid for the very people that it was meant to serve. We want to reserve and strengthen Medicaid for those people who are supposed to be on it: pregnant women, children, seniors, disabled.
Let's talk about the tax cuts. This extends the tax cuts that were approved during the first Trump administration in 2017. It also includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and gives seniors an extra $4,000 off their standard deduction.
The tax cut extension is absolutely mandatory. As I've called it, that is the crown jewel of this whole bill, because if we had not extended those tax cuts, families would have seen a $1,500 increase in their tax bills. So that was the absolutely mandatory element of this entire bill, this entire reconciliation bill. Now, those policies that you just alluded to, those were President Trump's policies that he wanted in this bill, and we were able to get him in there. But again, this bill spends too much money over the next 10 years. We'll have to deal with that.
The no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and the $4,000 extra for seniors.
Those are programs that are going to cost us a lot of money. I know President Trump wanted them, and we got them into the bill, but make no mistake about it, those are costly programs.
So $12 billion is now included to reimburse border states or reimburse any state like Texas who spent money during the Biden administration to secure the border or help Texas secure the border.
Governor Abbott had asked for $11.1 billion. Now, this is for general border charges that Texas incurred because the federal government would not do its job. So Texas taxpayers, the people who are watching this show, they paid for what should have been done by the federal government. That's why this amendment was added.
Do you think Texas will get the $11.1 billion that Governor Abbott has asked for? I know there's only $12 billion that's part of this.
I suspect it'll be real close, Jack. I don't know the other states' charges, but I will tell you they are very minor compared to Texas.
Various congressional Democrats from Texas blasted the bill, saying it will hurt people by taking away their health care.
It's what I call bureaucratic red tape meant to disqualify people.
Yes, their cuts are permanent, but also the harm that's done will be permanent too. And we're going to have to find a way to stop them now, or we'll have a long time trying to pull ourselves back such that people can get proper health care who need it.
These cuts are going to be devastating to San Antonians, to Texas, and to people across the country. To start with, you have 14 million people that could lose healthcare coverage. Either those folks that are enrolled in Medicaid or folks who have an ACA subsidy.
The bill now goes to the Senate for consideration. President Trump outlined new information about a missile defense system to protect the U.S. from being attacked. It's called the Golden Dome, and Sarah Jenkins explains in this week's brief.
For months, President Trump has shared his desire for a defense system like Israel's Iron Dome and requested funding for it during his joint address to Congress in March. A recent Pentagon assessment warns of increasing missile threats from China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran over the next decade. With an initial $25 billion budget proposed and a projected total cost of around $175 billion, President Trump said the Golden Dome missile defense system would be capable of intercepting missiles launched from anywhere in the world or space. He said the project would involve multiple states and defense and technology companies, and that Canada wants to be involved. The president said the Golden Dome should be operational before the end of his term in January 2029.
Thank you, Sarah. Coming up next, meet the North Texas teenager who inspired a new federal law to take down revenge porn deepfake videos when Eye on Politics returns. A North Texas teenager and her mom went to the White House last week to watch President Trump sign into law a bill that they inspired. The Take It Down Act makes it a federal crime to post and threaten to post real or fake intimate images without a person's consent. Social media platforms will also have to remove these images within 48 hours of being requested to do so. This crackdown on deepfake revenge porn images comes after the teenager, Elliston Berry, became a victim. We spoke with her and her mother, Anna McAdams.
It was truly a crazy experience. I mean, when this first situation happened, the last thing I wanted to do was go on any sort of television or anything. So being able to stand up there with the president and the first lady, have them sign this bill that really is protecting people was so rewarding, especially because my mom and I, we spent the last year and a half fighting and getting in contact with people in order to have some sort of security and protection implemented. So being in person, being invited to a signing, a ceremony just like that, it was such a rewarding experience.
Anna, what was it like for you?
Very surreal. It was just a full circle moment for both of us, I think, and just realizing that our voices were heard and now we have protections in place. And we never believed that that could really happen. And then here we are. And it was bigger than we ever imagined it to be.
So let's go back to the experience that really made all this happen, that led to this. You woke up one morning and I believe your phone started blowing up about what was going on. So take me from there.
Well, when I was a freshman in high school, an October morning I woke up to messages from one of my friends telling me that there were these images of her and I going around. So she had sent me a text message with a collage of photos, an edited photo of her, and then the original photo of her, and then the edited photo of me, and then the original photo of me. So she made this collage in order to prove to others that, hey, these photos aren't real. And
they were depictions of you being nude.
yes, it was these AI photos of her and I nude that were getting sent around. And these photos, they looked extremely realistic. I mean, it was our Instagram photo and then with a nude body over it made with AI. So it looked completely real. And to a person that doesn't know me or someone that's not familiar with my social media or a predator, let's say, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference whether it was real or not. So it was really heartbreaking and it was really scary.
But with this, we never saw coming. So we did not know what to do with it. And so when I took her to school that day, I just went straight to the office and met the moms of the other two girls that had happened to. And we went in saying, you've got to do something about it. and the school didn't know what to do either. So I started calling anybody and everybody that I could think of to leave messages with, like our local Senator Phil King, left messages with his office, Cruz's office in DC, here in the state. I just called anybody that I could think of that would want to listen to our story. In March, Senator Cruz's office reached out and we're like, we got your message, we want to hear your story. So that's when I shared our complete story with them. And they said the senator wants to try to draft a bill that would help.
So what is your message to other students who may be going through this?
My message would just to be that conversations matter and that it is important to talk and to spread awareness, communicating with others and having that open conversation, telling others what is going on is so important and so critical.
Similar legislation is now advancing in the Texas Legislature as well. And remember, you can watch the full interviews of everyone on the show today by going to our CBS Texas YouTube page. Once you are there, press the subscribe button. And that's all for Eye on Politics this week. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening to you at CBS News Texas. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next week. And from all of us here, have a meaningful Memorial Day weekend.